I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. And 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel. The time is 5:31. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is 6:37. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome all of you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School District School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during matters from the floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. Finally, I would like to remind all of us that the mission of Northeast is to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Next item.
5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. A, Tex Hill Middle School, Rudy Jimenez, Principal.
Good evening.
Good evening.
President Bresnahan, members of the Board of Trustees, Dr. Gotardi, members of executive staff, and guests. It is a pleasure to introduce two of our outstanding students at David Lee Tex Hill Middle School. Both of these student leaders impressed me as 7th graders during our first year and have continued to fill that role this year. First, I'd like to introduce Campbell Lewis, who is currently an 8th grader. I'd like to highlight a few of her many accomplishments. She's a treasurer of the National Junior Honor Society and is enrolled in all pre-AP courses. She is involved in varsity choir and is a member of the choir council. She's a member of the volleyball team and is also a student ambassador. Campbell also participates in all-star cheerleading. Campbell is here with her parents, Russell and Jennifer Lewis, and her brother, Carter. Next, I'd like to introduce Gavin Granados, who is also an 8th grader. I'd like to highlight a few of his many accomplishments. He's a member of the National Junior Honor Society and is enrolled in all pre-AP courses. He's involved in athletics and participates in football, basketball, and track. Gavin also participates in AAU basketball for the Texas Tigers. Gavin is accompanied by his mom and stepdad, Kelly and Brian Alvarado. Also in attendance are his 2 sisters, Alexa and Liliana Granados, and his brother, Jaden Alvarado. Campbell will lead us with an invocation, and then Gavin will lead us in the pledge to the American flag and the Texas flag. Will everyone please rise?
Dear God, thank you for this privilege of providing the invocation for tonight's school board meeting. I am very honored to have been chosen to do this tonight. Please bless the Northeast Independent School District board members here this evening and help them to make good decisions. Please grant them wisdom and understanding of others as they determine the future for our district. Please bless the teachers and administrators of NEISD as they dedicate their lives to our students each and every day and provide role models for us to follow. Thank you for all the opportunities you have provided for our school district, and I pray that for a bright future ahead. Lastly, I pray that the outcome of tonight's meeting will be in accordance of your will. In Jesus' name, I pray and believe. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Mr. Jimenez, thank you so much. And students, would you care to come to the podium? Campbell and Gavin. You can go to the podium right over there. We're going to ask you just a question or two. So Campbell, do you ever get a chance to sleep? You're a busy girl.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And so what are you thinking about next year in high school?
I think I'm going to do cheerleading and choir.
Wonderful. And where's your family? I noticed that why don't they stand up and you can tell us who they are?
That's my mom, Jennifer,
Yes, I see the resemblance.
and my little brother, Carter.
Hi, Carter. Well, congratulations, and parents, I'm sure you're thrilled, and you are, Campbell, you are precious, and I'm so glad you're at Northeast, and I like what you had to say, and we will follow our will. So thank you for those very inspirational and wise words.
You're welcome.
And Gavin, what about you? What's the plan for next year? You're in all sorts of sports.
Focus on basketball.
Basketball. You've got the height. And where will you go, to Johnson?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So how exciting, and how are things at Tex Hill Middle School?
Good.
Good. Do you ever see Mr. Jimenez in the hall?
Yes, ma'am.
He's a pretty good guy. So he keeps track of all of you. And what about your parents, your family? Are they here?
They're here.
Why would you introduce them? Please stand.
My stepdad, Brian, my mom, Kelly, my little sister, Lily, older sister, Alexa, and little brother, Jaden.
Well, hi, and thanks for being here, and they're all much littler than you. Congratulations, and I'm sure you're very proud of your son, and thank you for being part of Northeast. We are so thrilled that you're part of our schools and that the families are here. It means a lot for us, for all of us, for you to be here. So congratulations, and good luck to all the others coming through the school system. We wish you the best. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Grano is presenting you with some lovely certificates. Families, you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to leave. Leaving might be more interesting, but it's up to you. Thank you again for being here. And Mr. Jimenez, thank you. We always love seeing you, and I know you do great things at our school, as you did at other schools, so we're glad you're with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next item.
6, recognitions. A, National Healthy Schools Award.
Mr. Clary.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, and guests. Ms. Glosson, Sharon Glosson, our executive director for school nutrition, is at the podium to make this presentation or recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to call Katie Bowen to go ahead and come up with me. Katie is our nutrition education and wellness coordinator for the school district, and she worked with the campuses that are going to be recognized to apply for this recognition. And so I'm going to have her, as we call the schools up in a moment, give out the certificates. Okay, so the award that we're presenting tonight is the Alliance for Healthier Generation, and this award was formed as part of the Healthy Schools program in response to rising childhood obesity in our nation. Currently, our district is by far leading the city in number of schools receiving this award, and we have multiple schools that receive this award each year. But to earn the National Healthy Schools Award, schools must improve their nutrition and wellness services and physical activity programs to meet or exceed stringent standards set by the Alliance. Schools are eligible for bronze, silver, or gold awards based on their level of achievement. This year, 376 schools across the nation are being recognized with the National Healthy Schools Award. The Alliance recognized 6 Northeast ISD schools: Oak Grove Elementary, Vineyard Ranch Elementary, Colonial Hills Elementary, Harris Middle School, Eisenhower Middle School, and Bradley Middle School with the 2015 National Healthy Schools Award. The representatives from each campus were able to go to the Alliance's summit in Washington, D.C. earlier this month. So today we'd like to bring up the leaders from those campuses that were responsible for working with Katie and applying. It's a lengthy application, and so it takes a lot of work and dedication. And so today we have from Oak Grove Elementary, I'm going to call you up. We have, they received the Bronze Award. We have Barb McCarthy, Harold Massey, and Shannon Derelick. Yeah. And then if y'all will stay at the front, then we'll take a group picture. And so for Vineyard Ranch Elementary, we have Tamara Van Cleve. For Harris Middle School, we have Jeremy Niehoff, Karen Fox, and Christopher Flores. For Colonial Hills Elementary, who received a silver award, we have Jana Mascoro and Terry Pitts. For Bradley Middle School, who also received a silver award, we have Jennifer Schaefer. And for Eisenhower Middle School, who also received a silver award, we have John Smith, Catherine Clare, and Karen Dobbs. That's everybody.
Next item,
B, Texas Comptroller's Leadership Circle Award.
Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gottardi, executive staff and guests, Brian Moy and Susie Lackhorn are going to discuss this great award that we received. It's very exciting.
We're glad Susie's here.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gottardi, executive staff, and guests. Yes, Susie is here to keep Dan and myself in line, as you wish. I'm here, usually I'm up here presenting something technical, so this is a little out of my comfort zone. But the Northeast ISD has received a Platinum Leadership Circle Award for 2015 from the Texas Comptroller Leadership Circle Program. The Comptroller of Public Accounts created the Leadership Circle program to recognize government entities that, quote, are striving to meet a high standard for financial transparency online. So there are four possible designations: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And we were fortunate enough to receive the Platinum Award first time out. The Platinum Award winners are entities that, quote, go above and beyond providing financial transparency. To qualify for the award, the district must have a website that's dedicated to providing open, clear, and user-friendly financial information, including, items such as our budgets, annual reports, check registers, debt information, tax rate information, and even information about our financial sustainability. And much of this information is already required to be online by law. But the emphasis here is to go beyond the posting of numbers and to try to provide a picture or narrative of NEISD's finances. So since we're talking about an award on a website, why don't we go ahead and just really quickly show some of the items that are on that website. So if you're on neisd.net, you just hover over Community and click on District Finances. There's actually criteria on how many clicks of a mouse are required to get to certain information. So luckily, the hover feature just means only counts as one click. So in addition to putting out the adopted budgets, there's also an executive summary describing the major components of the budget. And there's all sorts of information regarding district debt, if you scroll down, information on property taxes, and even one great feature that we've added even since we won the award, so this wasn't even part of the award process. Well, this part's been out there about how much, taxes for an average home are, but now you can actually go and see how your tax dollars work in NEISD. So
That is so impressive.
Yeah, so if you put in the taxable value of your house, and even before you do it, maybe you don't know what the taxable value of your house is, you just know what the total value is. You can click there and it'll take you to the appraisal district where you can type in your name and it'll bring up the total value of your house and the taxable value. So if you go into the yellow box and type in the taxable value of your house, let's just put in, I don't know, 180,000, that's close to the average. Click Submit.
Oh, my
And it
goodness.
tells you what your school taxes are, and of the M&O taxes, what was the rough breakdown of our M&O budget? So of this taxpayer, they put $1,073 towards teacher salary and benefits this year. And then there's
That is so impressive.
and then there's a link below saying what your what your INS taxes go for. So it'll take you to the debt service.
And I like the red highlighted part that you have there. Do not use this calculator.
If your taxes are frozen.
Yes.
Yes.
That caught my attention right away.
Good.
My taxes are
That,
not.
that, what, that's
But I'm
what
getting
was intended.
close. You know- Do you know, I have Googled amortization calculators and this sort of thing often. So let's see if NEISD comes up.
Okay.
Yes. We need to move it up toward the top of the,
right. Okay. The goal is to, unless the comptroller changes the award criteria, this website will continue to meet the platinum level, but we don't want to stop. We're going to constantly be adding new features and hopefully more interactive features such as this one to our website as we move along. We owe it to our taxpayers to show how their money's being spent.
Brian, what do you mean if they change the criteria? You'll still be platinum. You're ahead of it.
They changed the
Come
criteria,
on.
even when I first looked at it from 2014, they made the criteria much harder for 2015, but we still managed, there was a total of 23 points, we got 22.
Not a problem. So who came up with this idea? Was it a team effort? Did you brainstorm, a huddle? What? Susie's pointing to you.
Like I said, a lot of this were things that were on this website even before I started with the district, and they've just been improved upon every year, and it's just never been focused in such a way to prove out that we meet what the state considers. So
Right.
some of them just needed to be tweaked a little.
Sure.
Some sections needed to be added brand new. So
But this interactive calculator is really what I was thinking about.
I saw that on another district's website. I thought it was a great
I was
idea.
going to say, no other school district has it. I was hoping you were going to say that.
It's slightly different.
Yours is better.
It doesn't follow. This follows the Moat KC TASB model of how a dollar spends a day, and the other one doesn't. So at this time, I want to recognize a handful of people who are instrumental in creating the website and maintaining the website. First, we have Jeff Coates, Senior Director of Accounting and Payroll. Obviously, Susie Lackhorn, Director of Budgets and Financial Analysis. Janie Villarreal, who is our Senior Accounting Manager. Shanna Toborg, a District Treasurer. And Deb Caldwell, Director of Government Relations and Grant Development. Now, granted, she's not in the finance department, but, you know, she's a jack of all trades, so
Yes,
she's
we
helped us
do
out
know.
many times. And finally, Alex Carrion, my administrative assistant, who, even though she's only been doing this for about 3 months, she got a crash course in web development and maintenance and was instrumental in getting us up to this point.
She looks like another voice of reason.
Okay,
I'm teasing with you,
all
Brian.
right. Well, thank you. So at
But
this
I
time,
do mean what I said about her. Go ahead.
So at this time, I'd like to bring these
Ms. King,
folks
do
up.
they- And Mr. Wheat, would you mind handing the certificates to our group?
Yes, we don't have individuals that, we, the department, are going to accept the state certificate.
Thank you. Come on, Deb. Congratulations to all of you. We appreciate it. In the middle. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you so much. Next item.
C, National School Bus Safety Award recipient.
Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, President Bresnan, trustees, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, and guests. It is a pleasure to come before you this evening. At a later time, we'll present the resolution as we normally do. But first of all, we would like to recognize you from our transportation department as being selected as one of the honor boards with TASER and TASB. So please enjoy your tokens of our appreciation. If you need to help us recruit some drivers, there's a pen to make a note.
There you go.
Secondly, I would like to ask Larry Norris to come forward, please. Larry is one of our outstanding mechanics. Last March, he competed with 20 other individuals, and he won the Texas Best competition for mechanics. Larry is now preparing to represent the state of Texas and the Northeast family in the national competition, which will take place November the 6th through the 10th in Richmond, Virginia, during the American Best competition, which will be during the National Association for Pupil Transportation Conference. I present you Larry Norris, one of our outstanding mechanics and the best in Texas.
Mr. Norris, so you compete in November? That makes me so nervous. So what do you think?
It's exciting to meet other technicians and try to win the competition. I've been doing it since 2008.
Well, thank you so much. And I loved when my children could take the school bus. I think we all feel the same way. So we are so grateful for what you do and for what Mr. Anderson's department does. And I can't say enough about how much respect we have for both of you.
Thank you. It's
And
an
that's
honor.
really exciting. So come back and let us know what happens with
I
the big
sure will.
trophy.
I sure am going to try.
I know you'll win.
I'm going to try my best.
No pressure.
Thank you.
And I believe we have some certificates, and Mrs. Wolf is going to present them.
I tried to buy a school bus last weekend. They would not let me do it.
Mr. Anderson, how long have you been with the Department of Transportation here?
I'm going on my 12th year.
12th year.
Yes, ma'am.
Unbelievable. You're just so great. We're glad you're here with us.
Thank you.
Congratulations again. Thank you so much.
And if I may,
Yes,
Madam
sir.
President, joining Larry this evening is his proud mother,
Please introduce
Mrs.
her.
Joanne
What a thrill.
Fairbanks. Mrs.
Congratulations.
Fairbanks, thank you so much.
No, thank you, and we're glad you're here. Congratulations. Mrs. Huey, next item.
D, 2015 Honor Board.
And this is Dr. Gotardi.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly my honor this evening. Mr. Anderson had already graciously said how proud we were of our School Board of Trustees. I can tell the audience that the School Board Awards program was created in 1971 to recognize school boards whose dedication and ethical service have made a positive impact on school children of Texas. School boards are nominated to represent their regions, and they're running to be named of one of 5 Texas honor school boards, one of which is chosen as the Texas's Outstanding School Board. I can tell you that there are roughly, give or take, 1,200 school districts in the state of Texas. There are 20 regions in the state of Texas, and there were 11 school boards who were actually made it to the state level. After a state competition committee reviewed the applications of our school board, they selected Northeast ISD School Board as one of the top 5 school boards in the entire state of Texas. Yeah. I'm not finished yet. A week ago Friday, this Board of Trustees and myself were interviewed by a group of 10 superintendents from across the state of Texas. And I have to tell you that I'm working on my 5th year as superintendent of Northeast ISD, but I can't tell you how proud I was of these 7 members. By rules, they gave me 3 minutes to start off the competition, and then the next 30 minutes, they asked these board members a cadre of questions. And I was so proud of the way they unified together. They piggybacked off each other's question. or off of each answer, I should say, each response. And honestly or obviously, Cy Fair is the one who won School Board of the Year in the state of Texas. But I couldn't have been any more proud of the Northeast ISD Board of Trustees. There's no question in my mind they were the winners. And I just wanted tonight to publicly congratulate you, to thank you for going through this competition. We do have a very nice plaque that obviously we received that day. It was bittersweet being up on the stage in front of, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 people. We didn't fall off the stage. But I can tell you on behalf of executive staff and administrators, counselors, teachers, and 67,000 students across this district, we truly appreciate what you do for this school district on a daily basis. Congratulations. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gotardi, and thank you for those very nice words. And as I have been reminded, and I agree wholeheartedly, there are 8 of us, and that's what makes the district work. You as the team of 8 and as our leader. And I would like to thank, there are certain people that I know really worked hard on this, and one of them is Marie King and Deb Caldwell. So thank you so much for that. It was an honor, and it was really a lot of fun. I was surprised.
Along with Marie and Deb, Aubrey helped
and Aubrey,
quite
of
a bit.
course. Thank you so much. And it was just more fun than I thought. And we started feeling competitive, and right?
But a great
Yeah, I know. And the other group had matching outfits. I didn't like that. Remember? The JJ and the JJ and the, yeah. Yes, you're right. I got outvoted on that. But anyhow, it was really an experience that I'll always remember. So, and we're so proud to serve all of those that we serve, and that's what makes this district so great. So thank you very much. I don't know if anyone else would like to add.
Madam Chair, in addition to the staff that worked on the presentation, we want to thank Dr. Gotardi for recommending us to start with. So we thank you for doing that, and you made a good presentation. Sorry we didn't win, but did make it to the top.
You know what? I know it's a
we're in the top
cliche,
5.
but trust me, you are all winners. You make it to that level with 1,200 potential school districts out there. You make it to the top 5 in the state. I mean, that's true. A true accomplishment, and we thank you very, very much for what you do on a daily basis. In my 3 minutes, I had to go very quickly, I have to tell you, but in my 3 minutes, I tried hard to explain how passionate, how dedicated, how loyal you have to be a board member. It's not just that you show up one Monday night a month. It's much, much, much more than that. There are football games, concerts, graduations, convocations, graduations, PTA events. The list of activities go on and on and on, not to mention about 35 or 40 Monday nights a year that they volunteer their time to help us make great decisions in the school district. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
E, other.
And we have none.
None.
No other. Next
7,
item.
presentations. A, teacher substitute pay.
Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Bresnahan, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, and guests. I would like to ask Mr. Joel Trevino, our Executive Director for Human Resources, to give this presentation.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff. I have a retainer, so that's why I sound like this. At the last board meeting, you requested a review of the substitute pay for the school district. As per the direction of the superintendent as well, we went ahead and did that. As you can see in this slide, we have two categories for teacher substitutes. The first one is degreed, and the second is certified. On the degreed, we all stand at the same rate, $80. And what I did is I went ahead and put the districts that are our competitors. On the certified side, as you can see, we are at the bottom of that group. So the superintendent has approved an increase at the rates for the degreed and the certified for these two groups, and this is what happens. Again, we come to the top. So we increased the rates to $85 for the degree from 80, and the certified to 90. So at this point, as you can see, for the degree, we are at the top of the range for those school districts in our surrounding area. And for the certified, we are, again, very much at the competitive phase with our surrounding school districts. This increase will take effect on January 4th, 2016. I will entertain questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. Does anyone have
Thank you.
questions or comments? Mrs. Perkins, did you want? Good. Mr. Wheat?
I'm just glad that we could have a comment that came in from a month ago, and that the district looked at it and figured out that there was an issue and was able to respond very quickly. I think that's a great sign that you know, we looked at it, and that the district did, and was able to respond very quickly. So I'm proud of that.
We will be closely watching the budget for this particular line item. We're hoping that we have enough in this particular budget right now to make it through the 15-16 school year. But if not, we will be coming back to you at a later point to do a budget amendment. But right now, we don't think that anything's necessary, needs to be done in the way of budget.
Thank you, Dr. Gotardi.
Thank you.
And I agree, Mr. Wheat, wholeheartedly. Mr. Trevino, just one real quick question. Are most of our substitutes certified? I would think not, that they're degreed but not certified.
Most of our substitutes are certified.
Certified?
Yes.
So what does that say about the marketplace? That's interesting. Or is it just certified teachers that are interested in doing part-time work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and what we require for long-term, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Most of them are degreed.
Degreed, that's
Most
what
are
I would've
degreed.
thought.
The small percentage is certified, and what we require for long-term assignments is that they must be certified.
Well, that's a good answer, because I'm glad you said it that way, because I would hope that most certified teachers are teaching full-time.
Yes.
That's their desire, and that's what they're doing.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Next.
8, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel, including but not limited to administrative appointments.
Do I have a motion on routine personnel as presented in closed session?
I move that we approve personnel as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Grono. There can be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item.
2, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Chapter 21 continuing contract employee.
Do I have a motion to approve the proposed termination of the identified teacher's continuing contract discussed at executive session pursuant to the terms of the employee's contract, NEISD, Board Policy, DFCA Legal?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins.
Wolf.
Mrs. Wolf, did you make the second?
Second.
Thank you. There can be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item.
3, principal of Lopez Middle School.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the principal of Lopez Middle School as discussed in executive session?
I so move.
Thank you, Mr. White. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Grono. There can be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item.
4, introductions.
Dr. Gotardi.
Thank you, Madam President. Board members, ladies and gentlemen, I have one introduction tonight and then one announcement. Last month, we approved the hiring of a executive director for facility maintenance and support, Dr. Barry Lanford. Barry? Dr. Lanford joined the Northeast family in 2000. Prior to being named Executive Director of Facility Maintenance and Support, he was the principal at Lopez Middle School. Dr. Lanford received a bachelor's degree in history in 1989 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. He received a master's degree in educational administration in 1994 from Texas A&M University Kingsville. Additionally, he earned a doctorate in educational leadership in 1999 from Texas A&M University Corpus Christi. Dr. Lanford has 18 years in education. Congratulations, Barry. We welcome you to the Facility Maintenance Department. Yeah. You might want to introduce your family that you have here.
Please do.
Absolutely. Madam President, Dr. Gotardi, Executive Staff, this is my very supportive and lovely wife, Jacqueline Ivana Lanford. And this is my daughter, Carolyn Lanford. So we're very pleased to be here. Just extremely pleased to be part of the Northeast family.
Thank you. And Dr. Lanford, thank you for your service for so many years, and congratulations on your continued movement with the school district. That's very exciting, and we're so happy that your family's here. Congratulations to all of you. And you're right, the wife has to be very supportive. We recognize that. The announcement I'd like to make tonight is a new principal of Lopez Middle School will be Mr. Eric Hornley. And we will bring Eric back at the next board meeting for formal introduction. Great.
But Eric will be our new principal at Lopez Middle School. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gotardi. Next item.
B, possible action on the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property pursuant to Government Code Section 551.072.
No action.
C, possible action regarding consultation with board's attorney pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071. 1, possible and pending litigation.
No action. Next item.
9, comments from individual board members. A, 2015 TASA-TASB Convention.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey. And this just gives us an opportunity to make any comments or thoughts regarding your experience at the convention, if anybody would like to share. Or how about the delegate assembly and how this was your first time, Mrs. Wolf, as a delegate?
Yes, it was.
And?
Thank you very much for nominating me. No, it was very educational. It was interesting to see how the state board actually works, how TASB actually works. No huge surprises, I mean, to us, because we were very well informed. I enjoyed it. I think it was a good conference. I had a really good time. I think my favorite part was the group interview. I mean, to interview for the board of the year, if you will, I think was really awesome. I mean, just to sit next to everybody and how we all worked together to kind of communicate, that was, to me, the highlight. That was awesome. So, yes. It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Now, anyone else?
I think there were some really great speakers this year. I loved Dan Rather and his grandson and the initiative that they're starting with funding a grant for innovative education ideas. I thought that was incredible. And to know that young man was 18 years old and he was an eloquent speaker, and I had the very incredible honor to meet Dan Rather beforehand very, very briefly. But so that was pretty special. We just exchanged Houston stories as native Houstonians. But
It's nice
I
to
think
hear
the
him speak.
classes this year were really, really above the bar. They really worked hard to bring some good classes for us and speakers. So congrats to TASA-TASB.
Mrs. Huey, how many attendees do you think were at this it was huge.
Yes, when we'll get the official attendance at the next TASB meeting, and it'll probably range between 4,000 and 5,000, I would imagine.
Great.
So.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for sharing the comments. And Sandy, I would like to congratulate you for being one of our director.
I was reelected, that's right.
You were reelected, and she represents Northeast, and she does an outstanding job, and that is a huge time commitment as well. So thank you for what you do.
Exciting time.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
Okay, Sandy. Next item.
10, new business for possible board action. A, board policy. 1, possible action regarding board policy DIA local, first reading.
Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Bresnahan, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi. We have attached some changes to DIA local that reflect a name, position, and telephone change to our ADA Section 504 coordinator. Mr. Trevino is available to answer any questions. We ask that the Board of Trustees approve the first reading of attached DIA local as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. Do we have questions for Mr. Trevino? Seeing none, do I have a motion? That's okay.
I move that we approve board policy DIA local first reading.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins.
Second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item.
B, resolutions. 1, possible action regarding National School Bus Safety Week.
Mr. Clary.
Madam President, members, Dr. Gotardi, members of the board, executive staff, and guests, Mr. Anderson will make his way back to the podium for this resolution.
Good evening again. Before I go into the resolution, Madam President and trustees, I'd like to present some local statistics and state statistics to give a better perspective of what we do on a daily basis. According to the Texas Association of Pupil Transportation, Texas school districts operate approximately 35,000 school buses that travel over 1 million miles, transporting about 1.5 million students daily in the state of Texas. We have 452 buses in our fleet, which 295 of them are transporting approximately 27,000 students twice daily, traveling 18,155 miles each day, covering our 144 square miles that consist of our district. This year, we are proud to announce again, we have done this to the executive staff, 219 of our regular route buses that represent all of our route buses for regular ed students, they're all air conditioned.
Oh, thank goodness.
And this is a phenomenal feat for us. There's no other comparable district in the area, starting from Austin down to the valley almost, that another district has accomplished that. So we're very proud of that.
You should be.
Now to the resolution. Northeast Independent School District Board of Trustees, October 12, 2015. Whereas each year, some 480,000 public school buses in the United States travel more than 4.3 billion miles to transport approximately 25 million students to and from and to school-sponsored activities, totaling a remarkable 10 billion passenger trips annually. Whereas dedicated and skilled bus drivers are responsible for making school bus transportation the safest form of surface transportation. Whereas the Northeast Independent School District is committed to providing safe, reliable, courteous, and efficient school bus services to its students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Northeast Independent School District Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim National School Bus Safety Week, October 19th through the 23rd, 2015, and urge all students and staff to take an active interest in the promotion of school bus safety activities and training to help ensure safe school bus transportation for our students to and from school and all activity trips. Be it further resolved, a copy of this resolution is placed in the meeting minutes of the Northeast Independent School Board of Trustees meeting, passed, approved, and adopted by the Northeast Independent School District Board of Trustees on this 12th day of October 2015, and I proudly submit the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution proclaiming October 19th through 23rd as National School Bus Safety Week?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any additional comments, discussion?
I just wanted to say to Mr. Anderson, you and your department do such an incredible job. I mean, first we see this Texas Mechanic of the Year. That's so incredible. Air condition the buses. I love that. And your safety record and everything else that goes along with it. Y'all are just incredible. So thank you so much for what you do for our children. It's very much appreciated.
It's all about a great staff. I couldn't do it by myself, and I give all the credit to them.
Well, a good leader, though, too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Madam
White?
Chair, I had one question.
Sure. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, you mentioned the air conditioning on the buses. I'm not sure how school districts are doing with safety belts, seat belts. I recall that there was a bus accident in Houston where the bus fell from the top of the freeway, and they indicated if they'd had seat belts, it would have probably saved some of the students. So is that something that school buses are being equipped with these days?
Well, right now, in most cases in the state of Texas, for larger buses that are 71 passenger, I would say no. If you will recall, back in 2006, 2007, the state mandated that three-point seat belts, that's the shoulder, across the chest and waist, would be recommended to be placed on the buses if funded. That particular mandate has not gone into full application because of its lack of funding. Now, just recently, the National Association of Pupil Transportation did put out a statement that further examination will be made to enhance the concept that we have on our buses, compartmentalization. That's basically the structure of the bus inside where you have tall seats and there is a space which provides added safety to the passengers on the bus. Now, there has been some controversy about placing seat belts on the larger buses. We do have them, the lap belts on our special needs buses. That's a federal requirement. But our larger buses at this time, they do not have seat belts on the bus. Now, there is a possibility that one day soon we will have to address this a little bit more critically. There are a lot of pros and cons. One of the main cons is that if you have one person, an adult, on a bus and you have small kids on there, will that driver have enough time to take care of those many students, small students on the bus, to evacuate the bus? Now, in view of the fatality accident in Houston, is still under investigation, and I believe that the way, this is just my interpretation and my experience looking at this, even if there were seat belts on the bus, the way the bus landed on its top, I don't think those kids and that driver would have had a chance, even with seat belts, from my personal experience.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Can I follow up with that, though, Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Because I've been following that story very closely. It happened near my daughter's home. And from the first reports and the follow-up show that the bus did have seat belts, but the children weren't using them.
Yes.
How is that, if the mandate is there, which whether it's right or wrong or funded or not, how are we going to be able to assure that the children do use the seat belts if they're there and if they're shown to be effective?
The reports that I've reviewed from districts that have placed the three-point seat belts on their buses, that is a problem in terms of enforcement. That is a part of the student behavioral and conduct issues that we have on the bus in terms of non-compliance. So there again, we have to reinforce it. But I must remind you that the school bus is not built like an ordinary vehicle. It's at least 3 feet higher off the ground. When a vehicle smaller than the bus hits the bus and there's a collision, it's going to go underneath the bus. The black painted stripes you see on the bus on the side, that is a cover for reinforced steel all the way around the bus. So it is reinforced with steel, and it can resist or it can take care of a collision with a small vehicle. The only thing that I've seen in my reports that could really cause fatal injury would be, for an example, a train or 18-wheeler hitting a bus. The fatalities that we had in Houston and Alabama about 6 years ago, the bus was flipped over and landed on its top.
Thank you.
Any other
Thank
questions?
you, sir. Any additional questions?
Thank
Seeing
you.
none. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Anderson. Do I have a motion? Oh, yes, we did it. We did it. I'm sorry. We need to
passed the
vote.
resolution
All those in
already.
favor?
We passed the resolution already. Okay.
Yes, we have the motion, so now we just need to take the vote. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you again. Next item.
2, possible action regarding National Lights On After School.
Dr. Newman?
Thank you, President Bresnahan, members of the board. Dr. Gotardi, I would like to ask Ms. Becky Gosson, our Executive Director for Adult and Community Education, to present this resolution.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, and guests. For 16 years, the National Alliance for After School has recognized the importance of after-school programs across the country. And we always do something here as far as our local programs and things. But this year is really an important one because this year marks 25 years that the KIN program has been existent in Northeast. And so we're very, very proud of that. And when I listened to Mr. Anderson talking about the number of kids that they transport every day, we have the ones that don't get transported, so we have them. But instead of reading the resolution, we thought about putting together a video that kind of talked about KIN as it is 25 years later. So Jason's going to show that for us.
As part of the Northeast Independent School District here in San Antonio, Texas, the Kids Involvement Network, otherwise known as KIN, is one of the largest after-school programs in the state of Texas, serving over 7,000 students annually.
What I enjoy most about KIN is I get to socialize with my friends, play games, eat snack, and do homework.
I've been in KIN since kindergarten and now I'm in 8th grade. KIN helps me get my homework done, go to after-school activities, and hang out with my friends. It also keeps kids my age off the streets.
Developed in 1990 to serve 6th graders at Ed White and Wood Middle Schools, the KIN program became the first district-administered after-school program for middle school students in the state and one of the first in the nation. The Kids Involvement Network has remained a noteworthy resource for parents across this district wanting their children in a safe and educationally driven after-school program.
KIN helps me because it allows me to go to all my after-school activities without having to find a ride home afterwards. And it's fun to hang out with your friends instead of being home alone by yourself.
My daughter has been in the KIN program since the 1st grade. The KIN program has been invaluable to my husband and I because we both work full-time. We're grateful that there's an after-school program available at the school she attends. This has allowed her to participate in many of the after-school activities that she enjoys. The KIN program has given my husband and I peace of mind. We're able to focus on our jobs, knowing that our daughter is safe and being kept active at the KIN program.
The KIN staff is key to our success here at Wilderness Oak. They are truly an extension of our faculty. They support our efforts in academics and extracurricular. The KIN staff is, well, professional. They're super enthusiastic, they're incredibly fun, and they really strive to develop strong relationships not only with the kids on our campus, but also with the teaching faculty as well.
I was in the kin program from the age of 6 to about 13, and that's a substantial part of my life. And the kin program became embedded sort of in who I was at the time. And so I always said that I wanted to come back and work for the organization because the teachers made such a lasting impact on my life. And if I could create half that impact on some other kid's life, that would just be perfect.
From 2 pilot middle school locations to 60 locations at each and every middle and elementary school in the district, KIN has become an integral part of Northeast's commitment to a 360-degree education, serving more than 7,000 students each year. As an enrichment-based program, KIN strives to reinforce what happens during the school day through various academically rich activities and homework assistance. A strong and ongoing focus on community service and service learning has created a solid network of community partnerships. Over the years, the KIN program's curriculum has grown to include STEM-based robotics, health and wellness through the CATCH curriculum, and a literacy-rich foundation. As the program maintains its efforts towards continuous improvement, administrators and staff alike are committed to nationally recognized standards of excellence that will assure that the Kids Involvement Network remains the quality program it is today.
This year, the KIN program is celebrating their 25th anniversary. But all those who have been led with the charge of impacting students' lives believe that KIN will be around for another 25 years or more.
I've been here for close to 15 years now, and I've got to see the KIN program grow even more. And I would like to take this opportunity to introduce a group of really dedicated, passionate people who lead the KIN program, and they're the ones that have the passion and the drive. So if you all would stand very quickly. I have Linda Sanchez. She's one of our cluster coordinators. Nicole Mendez is another cluster coordinator who I might say her husband and she are the ones who put this video together.
Great. Good job.
Jay Tillman, cluster coordinator. Pat Burns, cluster coordinator. You might want to raise your hand. I'm getting lost. Beverly Mitchell is our HR and curriculum coordinator. Jazz Romero Natal is our special projects person. She's been busy all day with our fun camp. Dolores Lozano is one of our administrative assistants. And Brittany King, who you saw there, is our training coordinator. So these are the people who make it happen.
And Miss King was a great master of ceremonies. I love it.
Wasn't she?
And I love the red dress. You looked great. Yes. Miss Gosson, no, don't leave.
All right.
Do you know, I was at a party this weekend and your name came up.
Seriously.
They usually see us coming when and it was someone that works for you, and she was mentioning what an incredible program that you run, which I completely agree with.
Thank you.
And she also talked about how the fee was very nominal for families and how it just works, and there's no better deal out there than what you do. So thank you for,
welcome.
and to your staff and to your group, and it's such a huge benefit to families and to working families. I remember when my kids were in the schools, and so thank you so much. And
Well, we're true believers in it.
well, we are too, and we believe in you and your group, and it's just what an honor. So thank you so much.
Excuse me, President Bresnahan,
yes,
I would like to mention that Mrs. Gosson will be leaving the district in December.
Well,
and she
they
will
told
be
me that as well,
truly
but I didn't want to
missed.
say.
Yes, ma'am.
I know it was sad when they said that to me. Yeah. Well, we'll miss you, but it looks like you've got lots of people that you have got quite the team, so thank you so much. And I love that this kids' testimonials. Having said all that, do I have a motion to designate the week of October 19th through 23rd to be Lights On After School Week in recognition of the Kids Involvement Network's 25th year of commitment to quality after school? I'll underscore that, quality after school programming.
So move.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Grona. Any additional comments, thoughts? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item.
C, instruction. 1, possible action regarding request for an exemption to the bilingual program.
Dr. Dow.
President Bresnahan, members of the board, and Dr. Gotardi, I'd like to invite Alicia Alvarez Calderon, who is the Director for English Language Learners, to make this presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Bresnahan, board members, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, and guests. Districts are required to identify English language learners and to serve each student through bilingual education or English as a second language programs with a certified bilingual or ESL teacher as described in Chapter 29, Subchapter B of the Texas Education Code. Each school district that has an enrollment of 20 or more English language learners in any language classification in the same grade level district-wide shall offer a bilingual education program as described in subsection B of Chapter 89 for the English language learners in pre-kindergarten through the elementary grades who speak that language. A school district that is unable to provide a bilingual program as required by Chapter 89 shall request from the Commissioner of Education an exception to the bilingual education program. Northeast ISD currently meets the criteria to offer an English-Vietnamese bilingual program. The district will be submitting a request for an exception to the bilingual program by November 1st, 2015. It is recommended the request for an exception to the bilingual program be approved as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Calderon. Do we have questions? So, Ms. Calderon, just tell me, since we have to request an exemption, how are these students' needs addressed?
Instead of offering a bilingual program for them, which is actually using their native language, which is Vietnamese, for primary instruction, we offer them an ESL program.
Okay.
And we have, right now, currently, we have more than 20 students in first, second, and third grade.
Right.
And so we dropped in kindergarten. Last year we had a large amount, but this year we only have 9 kindergartners.
Right.
One of the major issues, or the main issues for not offering a bilingual program is that the kids are spread out throughout the different schools in the district.
Yes.
So to be able to offer a bilingual program, first we will have to find a Vietnamese teacher, bilingual teacher,
Right.
which we haven't come across in all of our recruitment efforts.
Mhm.
And then they would have to be at one school to be able to provide those
Right.
services.
So, in following the progress of the students, in your estimation, how does it play out, for lack of a better phrase?
They do fairly well in the ESL program.
Okay.
For the most part, our Asian students do very well in the ESL program.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. Dow, did you want to okay, great. Thank you. Any additional questions? Do I have a motion to approve as submitted the request for the TEA staff development waiver? I'm reading the wrong one, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the request for an exception to the bilingual program as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Grona.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Next item.
2, possible action regarding request for the TEA expedited state waivers.
Dr. Dow?
Thank you, trustees, Dr. Gotardi. I'd like to invite Colleen Borman, who is our Executive Director for Curriculum Compliance, to make the presentation.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm here tonight seeking permission to renew 3 existing waivers with TEA. The first waiver is the staff development waiver. This waiver allows the district to train staff in lieu of 3 instructional days. The second waiver is our early release waiver, and this waiver allows the district to conduct school for less than 7 hours for a total of 6 days. And then the third waiver is the modified scheduled testing days waiver. This waiver allows the district to modify the schedule of classes for students who are not being tested. These requests are being made for the 16-17, 17-18, and 18-19 school year. And it is recommended the Board of Trustees approve as submitted the request for the TEA waivers.
Thank you, Ms. Borman. Do we have any questions for Ms. Borman? Ms. Borman, these are fairly rudimentary. This is what we do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve as submitted the request for the TEA staff development waiver, the early release waiver, and the modified schedule testing days waiver?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Additional questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Byrne.
3, possible action regarding request for waiver for the English as a second language program.
Dr. Dow.
Thank you, President Bresnahan, trustees, Dr. Gotardi. I'd like to invite Alicia Calderon back to the podium.
Ms. Calderon.
Good evening again. So in this one is the same thing. The requirements are the same with that we need to service our students with certified bilingual, in this case an ESL teacher, as described in Chapter 29. And so every district that does not have the appropriately certified teachers to serve ELL students in the ESL program with a required program as described in Title 19, Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 89, must request from the Commissioner of Education a waiver of the certification requirements for teachers who will provide ESL instruction. The district will be submitting Form 2, request for waiver for the English as a second language program by November 1st, 2015. As part of our comprehensive plan to provide ELL students with ESL services at their home campus, the district currently has teachers who will be completing their ESL certification requirements during the school year. TA requires us to provide a list by November 1st, 2015, of all teachers who will be completing their ESL certification requirements during the school year. It's recommended the request for waiver for the English as a second language program be approved as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Calderon. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the request for waiver for the English as a second language program as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Grona. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any additional questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Calderon.
Thank you.
Next item.
D, Campus Administration and Human Resources. 1, possible action regarding approval of PDAS appraisers.
Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Bresnahan, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi. Qualified appraisers who may appraise a teacher must be approved by the Board of Trustees. We ask that the Board of Trustees approve the 2 listed administrators as certified PDAS appraisers.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. Do we have questions for Dr. Newman? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the following administrators as certified PDAS appraisers?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Additional questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item.
2, possible action regarding class size reduction waiver.
Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Bresnahan, members of the board. I would like to ask Mr. Joel Trevino, our Executive Director for Human Resources, to address this item.
Mr. Trevino.
Good evening again, President Bresnahan, School Board, Dr. Gotardi, Executive Staff, and guests. The Texas Education Code requires that each year, each school district conduct a survey on the class size of each classroom across the district for grades kinder through 4th grade. This year, we conducted such survey, and we have 19 campuses that comprise of 74 classrooms that we are over the prescribed 22-to-1 student-teacher ratio. We have continued to experience a financial hardship in the school district. Therefore, we have requested this waiver from the state of Texas every year for the last, I believe, 5 years. This year, as I told you, as I informed you, we have 19 campuses with 74 classrooms. Last year, we had 24 campuses with 95 classrooms. The year before that, we had 36 campuses with 207.
That's good.
So each year, for the past 3 years, we have been able to decrease substantially the number of campuses and the number of classrooms with over the 22-to-1.
What would you say your ratio is average for these 74 classrooms?
It varies between 23 and 24. There's nothing more than 22 or 24.
Okay.
As an average.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions?
That was my question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trevino. Do I have a motion to approve the class size reduction waiver?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Groner. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkin. Any additional questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item.
3, possible action regarding school health advisory member appointments.
Dr. Newman?
Thank you, President Bresnahan, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi. I would like to ask Rachel Naylor, our Director for Physical Education, Health, and Athletics, to address this item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, and guests. It is my great honor to bring before to you the 2015-16 District School Health Advisory Council appointments. We are 50 members strong at this point, with 14 of those, or 14 in addition to those 50 being Kids School Health Advisory Council, which we were finally able to get going this year. We have chosen those students from the Mayor's Fitness Council student ambassadors. They are either students that applied or were accepted and are serving as ambassadors or have served as ambassadors. There are a pilot group starting out, and then next year we plan to expand as we keep going down to the elementary level as well. We ask that the board approve the District School Health Advisory Council member appointment list as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Naylor. Do we have any questions for Mrs. Naylor? Any real upcoming provocative issues that you see for the shack? Maybe provocative is not the right word, but anything, sodas.
You do know what we're responsible for, right?
Yes, I do. I shouldn't have said that. Scratch. How about there's been a lot of articles about sodas and soft drinks and the pros and the cons and
the
fast
one good thing
foods.
I can honestly say about our School Health Advisory Council is we have a very proactive group. We usually try to stay a couple of steps ahead of everything. With Sharon Glosson and her team, always making
Yes.
sure our wellness policy and everything is well in advance. I think we're going to be fine. I do know that something we will be looking at this year is we're getting ready to go through another big review on the middle school human sexuality and abstinence education. So that will be something that we'll be looking at this school year. But nothing more than what we normally do.
What you normally deal with.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've noticed that all the rates, the Bexar County, when they publish the rates for pregnancy and second, I don't know what they call it, the second time pregnancy, something like that.
Yes.
Those are all declining?
They're declining.
And
Not
that's
as much
very
as we
good
would
news
like.
for us.
We're still very high
Yes.
for the United States, but we are declining.
Okay. Yes, Mrs. Huey.
The Student Advisory Council that has been started, is that a new concept? Are we cutting edge there?
It's
or
new at
do
the
we
district.
copy?
We are cutting edge. It's new at the district level. Typically, they happen at the campus level.
Right.
Colonial Hills has a Kids School Health Advisory Council start at the campus level. Spring Branch was another one that started one at the campus level. That seems to be pretty popular. At the district level, that seems to be a little bit harder to accomplish. For me, that felt like that was the easiest way for us to go because that's something I have a lot more control over. Plus, Dr. Gotardi has had a great model with regards to his superintendent luncheons. So we're going to kind of model that. So in November, that is our first meeting that we're hoping to have our K-Shack and our Shack meet together. And we'll kind of tailor the agenda for that. The K-Shack met in April, and then we have already had a meeting in August. And so we're moving along. It is definitely a pilot type program right now as we're figuring it all out as we go and figuring the structure out. But we're very proud of what the students are doing. They have had the opportunity to give recommendations and feedback on the school health index recommendations that the Shack made. So it's been going very well.
Sounds like a great idea. I really like that. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mrs. Naylor? Thank you so much, and thank you for what you do. I know you work very hard with all of this.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Do I have a motion to approve the 2015-2016 School Health Advisory Council member appointments as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any additional questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item.
E, Business Services. 1, possible action regarding resolution indicative of the Board of Trustees' annual review of the investment program.
Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President and members of the board, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff and guests. Brian Moy, our executive director of finance and accounting, and Shanna Torberg, our treasurer, are going to discuss our yearly review of our investments.
Good evening again, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Quattardi, executive staff, and guests. The Public Funds and Investment Act is a section of the Texas Government Code. Part of that code requires that we report to you on an annual basis the status of our investment program and our investment policies. Included in the packet that was emailed to you is the annual investment report. At this time, Shanna Toborg will be giving you a brief overview, summation of that report. And then we will be asking for your approval of the resolution stating that you have reviewed this year's investment report and policies, and everything's copacetic. Shanna.
Good evening. As Brian mentioned, the Northeast ISD investment function is regulated by the Public Funds Investment Act, or the PFIA, specifically Section 2256. We also have to be compliant with our local and legal investment policies, and we're required to bring those to the board not less than annually, as well as the policies and strategies. And in order for our investment policy to be compliant with the PFIA, we must comply with the various categories shown here. We must include a list of authorized investments in which we may invest funds in. We must provide internal management reports, not less than quarterly. It includes definitions, authority, and applicability. We must have an investment policy, a strategy for investing funds, and authorized investment officers. We must practice the standard of care. And lastly, investment officers must attend investment training.
With regard to the investment policy, normally we bring you behind this presentation, behind this action item, a copy of CDA local, but technically, as part of Update 102, you just updated or approved that policy last month. We normally don't include CDA local in one of the major TASB updates because we felt that our policy was more encompassing than the TASB boilerplate policy. But this year they really did a good job of updating it, and it pretty much falls right in line with what Northeast was doing. So when you updated TASB Update 102 with it, local policy CDA, you've done your approval of the policy for the year.
Okay, and just to go back into a little bit more detail about those various categories that were shown on the previous slide, the policies are written, and they must emphasize safety of principal and sufficient liquidity, and they must address investment diversification, yield, and maturity, as well as the quality and capability of investment management. They must also include a list of those authorized investments that we can participate in. An example of those are the governmental and agency bonds, which are backed by the U.S. government, such as your Federal Home Loan Bank, Fannie Mae, and investments of that sort. It includes municipal bonds, which we here at the district issue. Those are issued by cities, states, and counties, anybody below the state level, and they're generally backed by a revenue or a general obligation bond. They also include commercial paper, certificates of deposit, and the local government investment pools. We must also have a method to monitor the market price and the ratings to make sure that nothing gets downgraded. Currently, our safekeeping bank provides a list to us on a monthly basis to keep up with that. And lastly, delivery versus payment, which means when we purchase an investment, no funds actually leave our account until an investment is received into the safekeeping bank. And so we have the Board of Trustee review of policies and strategies annually, which we're doing tonight. Reporting, we must report no less than quarterly, which we submit on a quarterly basis. We must practice a standard of care, which defined by the PFIA Act means that all investments are made with judgment and care under prevailing circumstances that a person of prudence, discretion, and intelligence would exercise in the management of the person's own affairs. And the board must designate one or more investment officers. Here at the district, we have 4. We have our CFO, our executive director of finance, the treasurer, and the treasury accountant. And we must all gain 10 hours of investment training on the PFIA within the first 12 months of taking office or assuming duties, and then not less than every 2 years thereafter. However, House Bill 870 states that effective last month, September 1st, they're going to change that requirement from 10 years to 8 years every 2 years. I'm sorry? I'm sorry, hours. What did I, sorry about that.
2 years of training.
And lastly, we must establish internal controls, and these controls are reviewed by both the internal and external auditors. Examples of those are separation of duties, custodial safekeeping, and written confirmations of all documentation of all trades that are made. And these next two slides are just a quick recap, which you are probably familiar with in looking at the quarterly report, just summation that, yes, we have and do meet all required categories. From investments, our certification, training, diversity of the portfolio, we maintain sufficient liquidity in all maturities. Our standard of care, we have plenty collateral. The required credit ratings and internal management reports are provided. Okay, next, we're going to talk a little bit about the portfolio diversification. This is a snapshot of what it looked like at June 30th. As you can see, on average, we like to keep about half liquidity in the investment pools. Although the debt service fund, there's a rather large amount in the investment pool due to things were starting to mature in anticipation of the August 1st debt service payment to meet that need. And again, this is just a snapshot at June 30th. This reflects our cash receipts for the last 3 fiscal years. Mainly our receipts from TEA arrive in the months of August, September, and October of each year. 20% in August, 45% in September, and 35% in October, with peak flows in December through February representing our property tax collections. And this forecast gets updated daily as we perform our daily cash management duties. That way we know we have a pretty good idea of where we're at to invest any excess funds that may remain to earn extra dollars for the district. And here we have our cash disbursements for the last 3 fiscal years. In December, it kind of rises a bit because the accounts payable department's trying to get all their invoices paid before we go out on winter break. And then January, it kind of spikes up a little more due to kind of catching up from the Christmas break, as well as 3 bi-weekly payrolls that occur during that month. And this is a quick snapshot of investment purchases and maturities for the last 2 years. In fiscal year 13-14, we had a little bit higher percentage of purchases due to the last of the 2011 bond authorization. Therefore, more funds were available to make investments. And this is a view of our portfolio performance compared to the local government investment pools. And due to the active management of the portfolio, we were able to do relatively well compared to the investment pools. On average, the investment pools for the fiscal year averaged an earnings of 0.06, and our portfolio earned a 0.26, so we beat the investment pools by about 20 basis points. And on the next slide, we can see the earnings illustrated here. All the earnings have trended about the same, except for the capital projects fund. In fiscal year 12-13, investments from the 2007 bond fund had started maturing, and there were no new funds to reinvest at that time, which resulted in a little bit lower earnings. However, in fiscal year 13-14, it started to rise again due to the remaining $200 million of the 2011 authorization. And then in 14-15, investments also from the remaining 2011 authorization were shorter in term due to the fact that there was going to be an expected Fed funds rate hike. So we kept investments short, so they were turning over a little more quickly. And in hopes that we could, when they came due, we could reinvest at a higher rate. Although that did not happen. It was supposed to happen in September, this last month. Did not happen, so they're thinking maybe in October and December it might happen again. It's kind of a gamble. I was speaking with one of my brokers late last week, and he's hearing that it may even occur next March. So it's looking pretty dismal still with the Fed funds rate not rising. So we try to do the best we can with what the market's doing right now. And speaking of that, Brian's going to go into a little bit more about what the Treasury yield curve has done.
Okay, thank you. So you want to click over one?
I'm sorry.
That's right. So this is the past 3 years, and you can this is what's called the Treasury yield curve. It shows what the federal securities, the types that we're allowed to buy, what the rates are at different levels of maturity, 1 month, 3 months, 6 month, 1 year, all the way out to 30 years. And this shape of curve is actually pretty normal. Unfortunately, for the last 3 years, it's been very normally horrible. And with basically nothing available to us in the short term. If you see when you look at the investment report, I believe our weighted average maturity, or the average length of time that our investments are out, is a little over 6 months. I think it's like 180 something days. Now, if you look out at the 6 month range, there's not a whole lot out there to be able to invest in. But again, that's an average. So yes, we have some stuff going out to even 1 year, 2 year, if we feel that we have cash available. And if you see this curve, the green line, which is this year, is like, hey, look at how much higher the green line is at the 1 year and how much higher it is than the red line even at the 2 year. And what if the Fed raises the rates? Aren't we going to start to see a lot more available funds for our investment earnings, especially if we have a new bond? Boy, we're going to have some great interest earned. But let's show that line is what the yield curve looked like when we received the 07 bond cash in when we sold those bonds. So we were able to achieve earnings 3, 4, 5%. Even if the Fed raises the rates in December or even next year, they're looking at raising the Fed rate, which is the rate that the banks lend money to each other on an overnight basis, by 1/4%. We won't even achieve that first line above the bottom line in terms of rates that are available on average to us to invest in under the Public Funds Investment Act. So yes, it will be a step in the right direction if the Federal Reserve says that, yeah, it's time to start moving the Fed funds rate, but it's not exactly at a point where we're going to go back to earning millions of dollars in investment earnings every year. I believe this year the general fund earned about $540,000 with all of the transactions, all of the activity, and we still pulled in only about $540,000.
Okay, and with that, moving forward, we're going to continue to constantly monitor the economic data for signs of rising yields. We're going to continue to position the portfolio to take advantage of the higher yields when and if they occur. And we're going to maintain all safety measures and continue maintaining the cash forecast to ensure maximum funds are available to invest. And with that, we'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Mrs. Grenier? Thank you for the presentation and for your hard work with all of this.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution indicative of the Board of Trustees' annual review of investment program as attached?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Grona. Any additional questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Next item.
F, consent. 1, campus administration. A, School Health Advisory Council Annual Report. 2, business services. A, bid items. B, $50,000 purchases. C, waiver of penalties and interest. D, broker-dealer authorization. E, resolution approving sources of instruction relating to investment responsibilities. F, contract for collection of delinquent taxes. 3, operations. A, Hidden Forest Elementary School Spark Project Bid Award Approval. B, district-wide concrete, site work, and asphalt pavement indefinite delivery quantity services contract bid authorization. C, professional services contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 2011 bond and M&O programs, design and construction requirements. 4, end of consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey. Is there a board member wishing to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Purvis. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item. Reports. I think we have someone from Linebarger in the audience, Mrs. Wells. Are you here somewhere? Did I see? So thank you for being here and for all that your company does for us. Thank you very much. And congratulations on your big award.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next item.
11, reports. A, financial statement, review of expenditures. Can you just do all three of them? Okay. B, 2014-2015 annual investment report. C, 2015-2016 quarter 1 investment report.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey. And these reports have been provided to all of us. Next item.
12, matters from the floor.
The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 5 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies. 2, a personnel action. 3, a student disciplinary matter. 4, a complaint about a particular student. And 5, pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the Superintendent's Office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78217. Mrs. Huey?
Rhett Smith.
Mr. Smith? And just to remind everyone that has signed up to speak to please give us your name and address when you come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rhett Rosenquist Smith, and I live at 306 Haverford Drive here in San Antonio. And the item that I want to speak on tonight is the change of the name. Robert E. Lee High School. Basically, I would like to thank Chairman Bresnahan and our board and all of our citizens that are here tonight to participate in the governance of our public education. I took the liberty of calling the Texas State Board of Education regarding the commemoration of Confederacy or Confederate symbols, and they didn't know if there was a written down policy. They seemed to say that it's up to individual school districts on matters like this. So I asked that my elected representative, Mr. Mercer, contact me about this issue. I also contacted the NAACP here in Texas. Now, I'm currently a member of the NAACP in San Antonio, but I would like to take this to a higher level. And I did contact the chairman of the Education Committee at the Texas NAACP, Ms. Phyllis Jones, and she agreed with me that we should not be teaching the Confederacy or upholding that symbol when it clearly is antithetical to what happened with the 14th Amendment after the Civil War. Due process and equal protection is clearly at odds with what, here's my sign. I don't know if you can see my sign tonight. It says, white supremacy is not equality. Everything that I've ever read about the Confederacy said that their right to secession was because they could proclaim whatever they wanted. They didn't have to respect equality. So that was one of the major issues about the before, during, and after the Civil War. I think it's still an issue today. And for that reason, I come here month after month to ask this board to stand up, to consider the legacy for the next generation of young Americans. And so I'm curious how it squares that we can uphold the Confederacy. Hearing about Robert E. Lee, I'm not here to denigrate Robert E. Lee, but I'm just saying we need role models that talk about civil rights and equality. And I still have no information, no evidence at all that that was what Robert E. Lee was about. He was simply a survivor at the end of the war who, like other Confederates, was not charged with any crimes, any war crimes, or crimes against humanity. Today, what do you think we should do about something like that? One of the greatest crimes against humanity that has ever occurred, where a person, because of anomaly of birth regarding the color of their skin, would then be subjected to oppression or allowed to be supreme over another race. I served in the United States Navy, and I certainly thought that I was fighting for the 14th Amendment, due process and equal protection. And now I come here, and that seems to be in question. Thank you for your time. Thank each of you for coming tonight, and I hope this school board and my school board representative will respect my presentation. Thank you.
Christopher C. Herring.
Good evening, Madam Chair, to the Board of Trustees, to the distinguished audience who has come out to provide their comments, and to our superintendent, Dr. Guattardi. So I am a byproduct of the Northeast ISD leadership.
Mr. Herring, I'm sorry. Just could you please state your name and address for the record?
Christopher Herring, 3700 Ridge Country.
Thank you.
So today I stand as a byproduct of the Northeast ISD leadership program. I was in the last class. And I enjoyed the opportunity to learn so much about the district. But one thing that really has disturbed me, and even as we go into this bond, where the bond opportunity for those that want to vote in favor, they can start as soon as the 19th. But I believe today that because when I look at the bond and I see how this board has treated citizens who have previously bought this issue of Robert E. Lee and the Confederacy, sadly, I'm disappointed to say that I don't believe that we should vote on the bond, as there's no justice for Kayla Wilson. And so I will leave here tonight unless the board decides to do what's right, which is to use your positions and bring this to the agenda so that there can be a due process. You can talk all day and night about Robert E. Lee. I've been to the school. I've seen the huge monument that's there at the school. There's been a lot of money invested in the history of Robert E. Lee. But I'm also reminded that in 1958, when the school was established, it was on the heels of Brown versus Board of Education, which basically said that there was going to be an equal opportunity for those people who look like me and who really represent 72% of the school district students, the black and the brown and the yellow, that they would have an opportunity for an equal opportunity within the education system. Robert E. Lee in no way, shape, or form, and the Confederate flag should be in public schools and public education and publicly endorsed by people who, condone slavery and the fact that a person like me could never be an officer, never could go to college and get a degree or multiple degrees, never be able to make it possible for my children to aspire to be educated, because Robert E. Lee did not stand for the education of African Americans. I will also say that, I think that even though I heard recognition earlier about the board, and you are an effective board, but I think at this point in time you're suffering from groupthink. And groupthink, as you know, is when a homogeneous, highly cohesive group is so concerned with maintaining unanimity that they fail to evaluate alternatives. The single alternative that I saw that this board really took was that you put on the actual employees a gag. So 10,000 roughly employees of NEISD can no longer speak on this issue. And to me, your inaction here without bringing this to the agenda and then taking action against the employees have really violated freedom of speech. And as an officer who is retired, I know that when I deployed to harm's way, I did it because I wanted to preserve and protect the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, and foreign and domestic. I think today we send a very bad message when innocent people who have an opinion, like Kayla, who have voiced it, like Rosa Parks voiced her non-violent disobedience protests, that you have shunned her and you have not truly done what you're supposed to do. I charge this audience not only to think about, how this board acts, but we need to rally to have this board to be more diverse. This school district is 72% minority kids, but yet this board of directors really represents maybe 14%. And so the contrast is really simple. And I think the reason why that there aren't hearts and minds that are really engaged on this issue is because you cannot relate. You have not related to this point. I will close with what Winston Churchill once stated. He said, if you have an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver.
Sir, I'm sorry,
hit the points once, then come back, hit it again, then hit it a third time, a tremendous whack.
Thank you, Mr.
And that's why we have to say no justice, no bond.
Your time is up, sir.
No justice, no bond.
Thank you, Mr. Herring.
Jacqueline Jones.
Ms. Jones, your name and address, please.
My name is Jacqueline Jones, address 3700 Ridge Country Street. Good evening, Madam President, Executive Board, Dr. Gotardi, and guests. My name is Jacqueline Jones. I also am a graduate of the Northeast Leadership Program here. I'm a retired Air Force colonel, 24 years served. I am speaking on behalf of my daughter, who is also a 8th grader in Northeast ISD and looking to which high school she will select next year. She is a gifted student on all the National Junior Honor Society, all the advanced AP courses, and she wants to be an engineer. One of the schools that are on her short list, of course, would be that magnet school that is in support of the STEM program, which is Robert E. Lee. I come to you today to tell you a little bit about my background. I served 24 years in the United States Air Force. My mother and father were born in Montgomery, Alabama, and marched with Martin Luther King. And I remember growing up visiting my grandmother every summer, as my father, who also is retired Air Force, going to Alabama and going through and experiencing in the 60s and 70s some of the lean over Jim Crow laws and experiencing that as a youth. Fast forward to 2015, 24 years, and I'm now retired. I chose Northeast ISD School District for a very distinct reason, because of the standard of excellence it had. My husband is also retired Air Force, and we decided that this would be the right place for us. However, I must tell you, I'm extremely concerned. I look to each and every one of you, the Board of Trustees, this evening, because as a mother of my daughter that will be going to high school next year, I don't want her to look up at a statue of Robert E. Lee, someone that celebrated and helped propagate slavery, people that look like her grandparents, or not her grandparents, but her ancestors that were slaves, okay? Just in case no one has ever talked to you, no one that's black. I know Mr. White is on the board, and I'm sure he has personal experiences also. But let me tell you from an African-American woman's mouth, the Confederate flag, I'm getting emotional, is very painful for a black person, okay? When we see the Confederate flag and all those that support it, it says that we wanted you to be a slave. Our family owns your family, and we support that. When we look at Robert E. Lee, who supported slaves, all slave owners denied Africans, fast forward African Americans today, an education, an opportunity. They purposefully did not want them to learn how to read and write. But yet, this is our hero that we have on a statue for all of our children of color, all of our children, forget children of color, all of our children are learning about Robert E. Lee, and we put him on a very large pedestal, a pedestal that I do not believe is appropriate. Now, I understand there's lots of history here, history for all of us. I just gave you part of my history, a history that's very painful when I see that symbol, when I see that Confederate placard in the front of that school. Kayla Wilson is my daughter for all intents and purposes, because my daughter may be there next year. I don't want her to walk into a hostile environment at that school and learn that the person that she has to go, Robert E. Lee at every sporting event, chose to keep her family members in slavery and deny them an education. There are many war heroes here in San Antonio, Texas. This is Military City, USA, just in case y'all didn't realize that. We have military generals that have rich history here. Let me give you an example. I'm just proposing that we make a change. It's time to make new history. And I understand that we all love our history, but it's time to make a change and rename that school to something that everyone in this school district, every child and every mother and father can be proud that their kid is going to that school. Give them the hero that represents all their backgrounds, that's inclusive of who they are, where they come from, their culture. Okay? Nothing that they have to be ashamed of and not want to learn about and not want to scream as a battle cry at a sporting event, a battle cry. Okay? My request today is simple. As a mother, as a leader, as a member of this district, I am simply asking you this evening to put on the next agenda, give us an opportunity,
Mrs.
both
Jones, your time
sides,
is up.
to speak. I just
Thank you.
asked, I conclude my comments, but I ask you to please put this issue on the agenda for next board meeting.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you
Jones.
very much.
Tom Weist, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. It's not easy to, is that Weist or, I'm not sure? Okay, I'm sorry, I can't read.
Mr. Weesty, I'm going to remind you, we've got 5 minutes.
Okay.
And Mrs. Huey is taking time. So I would ask that you please respect that.
Okay, I do have handouts.
You can give them to Mrs. King, and she'll take care of it.
Okay, afterwards.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Weisty. I live at 10803 Burr Oak in San Antonio. I'm a resident of the Northeast School District and a 1987 graduate of Robert E. Lee High School. I do plan to vote for the bond next week. When I first heard about changing the name of Robert E. Lee High School, I had the same emotional reaction that many alumni had. How dare someone take away part of my identity. I've waited a long time to share my thoughts on this issue. Hopefully, I can offer some new perspectives. You may have heard that this is a new topic inspired by politics. That is false. This issue has been around a long time. About 30 years ago at Lee, I remember discussing why there are so few blacks at Lee. And the response was, of course there are no blacks. Look at the name. That was 30 years ago. Today, the Lee campus still has a lower African American population in the district at about 4%. Many of us are aware, as parents, that parents select their home specifically for the area in which their kids will go to school. Why have black parents avoided the Lee boundaries? ISA has by far the lowest black population in the district at 2%. So even fewer African Americans are choosing to set foot on the Lee campus, even though you would expect ISA to be especially multicultural. You have to wonder why Lee high schools opened in San Antonio, Tyler, Midland, and Houston, all in the 8-year period following Brown versus Board of Education. That's a majority of the Lee schools in the state. You have heard that Lee High School has a good reputation. I have had the opposite experience. A business colleague in another state discovered I went to Robert E. Lee, made a judgment about me, and let me know. I was put in an uncomfortable situation of having to work with someone who thought I was a racist, not because of my actions, but because of the name of my school. Our students will have enough difficulty applying for jobs in the global workplace. Let's not give any employer any chance to reject a Lee graduate based on the assumption that they are a racist. Speaking of racism, we have to get rid of the flag once and for all. The Confederate battle flag is a threatening symbol displayed by church shooter Dylan Roof and flown by the KKK. It was also on a football player's cap at the August board meeting. I don't know if everyone realized that. It is at football games and across certain Facebook pages. The flag has been removed from the Lee campus for over 20 years, yet it still keeps showing up. If you remove the name, you will have no good reason to fly the flag. But it isn't just the flag. Let's be clear about Lee. Lee has no greater claim to fame than his fight for the side that wanted secession and slavery. He may have said some nice things, but the one thing everybody knows about him was he fought for the side of slavery. You have heard from a lot of alumni. A lot of us have presented emotional arguments to hold on to the past. But your duty is not to the alumni. Your duty is to the students. Man, I'm so nervous. In our work with transforming the future, we decided that learning happens best in a safe, engaging, and relevant environment, and that every person deserves the opportunity to be a lifelong learner. We have a case where a student chooses the opportunity to learn, even in an uncomfortable environment. Don't worry about us alumni who are trying to hold on to a memory. We'll survive. We'll get over it. Our memories of high school will be fine. Focus on the current and future generations of students. By the way, in addition to African American and Asian populations, the district is 57% Hispanic. All of the named high schools reflect one ethnicity, and there won't be many more opportunities to name a new high school. One party in this debate has generously offered a compromise with the name of a different Lee. Personally, I think we can do better. Thanks, and I do look forward to voting for the bond.
William B. Johnson.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is William B. Johnson. I live at 4310 Bloomdale, San Antonio 78218. We call that East Terre Hills, and that's the area represented by Trustee Ed White. Basically, much has been said here. There's not much more to be said, and if you were listening, I just personally see no reason why you wouldn't take the simple steps to simply do the right thing. it may not be as painful as you may be imagining. What I'd like to do, you mentioned briefly your mission statement, which is to challenge and encourage students to achieve academic excellence, but also to become responsible citizens. I think that's a very important part of it. And in my opinion, a responsible citizen is someone who will best develop in an environment that's free of racist individuals and symbols from the past. Racist, that is. Whether you believe it or not, I think students are in fact influenced by what's around them, the world in which they live. And if you're serious about your mission to focus on producing responsible citizens, as I hope you are, then you'll do something about that. There's no reason why you should not. In my opinion, there's two kinds of people in the world, coward and a courageous individual. I would like to think that my rep and the rest of you can determine which category you fall in. For example, a coward is someone who tends to evade hard choices. That's not leadership. I suspect when you ran on a platform that suggested to the voters that you were going to walk up to the plate and bat, that you wouldn't avoid it. So we're kind of wondering now. A coward is also someone who's afraid to bring up issues that may not be popular. It shouldn't be a popularity contest, ladies and gentlemen. It should be about doing what makes sense. A coward will also be someone who will, to use a common phrase, kick the can down the road. You know what that means. Keep putting it off, putting it off. There's no reason to do that. Let's go ahead and make a decision and make the right decision. For example, a coward that comes to mind, believe it or not, one of them name is Osama bin Laden. You ever heard of him? He's a fellow that got the illiterate, uneducated folk to do his work for him. He didn't do the dirty work. He found other people to do that sort of thing. And the ultimate coward, in the eyes of some people, was a fellow named Judas. You might remember the name Judas. Probably went to Sunday school yesterday, and you may have talked about Judas. But he's the one, in case you need to remember, who denied knowing the Christ. He was one of the 12. Of course, he was paid for it. I wouldn't like to think that that's happening here, but obviously your reluctance brings a lot of things to mind. It's very simple. Vote on the issue, vote it through, make a change that you'll be proud of years down the road, I believe. Now, a courageous individual is someone who triumphs over fear. Now, sometimes fear is simply a figment of your own imagination. I don't think there's anything for you really to fear. I mean, no one's going to burn you at the stake or do anything of the sort. So what's the fear about? I just really don't see it. I think it's in your own mind. One courageous person comes to my mind, a lady named Rosa Parks. I think her name was used tonight briefly. We all know about Miss Parks. That's an example of courage. Another name comes to mind, Nelson Mandela. Courageous individual. He didn't have to do what he did. He could have taken the easy way out, but he chose not to, and ultimately, he's a hero that some of you may even give him credit for being.
Mr. Johnson, your time is up, sir.
Thank you very much, and I hope you do the right thing. Thank you.
Gerald D. Givens.
My name is Gerald Givens, and I live at 716 South Preston. Good evening, board, citizens, students, and most important, Kayla. You're very brave. My grandfather, Merle LeGrand Givens, integrated the University of Washington, St. Louis. and I encourage you to keep your fight going. I'm also a retired Air Force veteran. I served both in Iraq and Afghanistan. When I retired, I decided to reside here in San Antonio. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm rooted in Ferguson, Missouri. Michael Brown, his mother, and his father, and I all graduated from the same high school. That street where Michael Brown was killed, that's where I learned how to ride a motorcycle. After I retired from the Air Force, I never thought that the last 2-3 years of my life would be defending who I am, standing up for the principles of being an African American in my country. I've traveled all around the entire world. And like the gentleman just stated, I've never seen an institution named after people like Hitler. Here in my own country, I learned that there are 78 schools named after Robert E. Lee, and that the majority of those schools were created and named after General Lee during the 1950s when we were trying to integrate schools. It's time for a change, board members. It's time for a change, City of San Antonio. General Lee is the past, but these children are the future. And that's where our focus should be. No justice, no bond.
Kayla Wilson.
Hello, I'm Kayla Wilson. I reside at 7234 Ruby Palm Pass. I'm here once again to address the board and my district board member, Ed White, on the concern of renaming my high school Robert E. Lee. This is my third time coming here now, and I've been given the impression that my request has not been discussed or even considered behind the scenes. I've also been given the impression that my concerns regarding the name have been a nuisance and a distraction, especially around the time of the bond election. Well, I just want to let the board members know that I am of voting age and I will be exercising my right to vote. The actions and or lack of actions of the board have created a hostile environment not only for me, but for all those who signed my petition and were accused of being outside agitators. So I ask that the board put in place a process to review and consider renaming NEISD schools named after Confederate loyalists. Let our schools reflect this time and our new and more progressive generation. Thank you.
Camille Abrams.
Good evening, Board, Dr. Godardi, Ms. Bresnahan.
Your name and
Camille
address, please.
Abrams, 7234
Thank
Ruby
you.
Palm Pass. I'm asking the NEISD Board to stop endorsing Robert E. Lee and the Confederate themes and the symbols. You need to remove the symbols from the school and rename the school of Robert E. Lee. This is our third board meeting. We've come today. You have a number of students that are asking for this request. These are your students that have these concerns. These are our children. It's my daughter. The petition to rename the school followed all the policies and procedures of the Board of Trustees when requesting an item to be placed on the board agenda. You have received 2 petitions now to rename Robert E. Lee High School, which has totaled over 11,000 signatures. You've heard from over 50 people who are alums, teachers, students, parents, and community leaders. At this point, you cannot say you haven't had any complaints. Why have you not answered the call of your community? Why, when you have students who have concerns, you have done nothing to address? Your silence has created a hostile environment for my daughter. This community elected you to do the very opposite of what you are doing now. Northeast NEISD will develop and promote positive relationships through communication, involvement, partnerships in our community. Northeast ISD will foster a culture of health and wellness among our students, staff, and community. These are your board goals. When we name a school after someone, we send a message to our children that this individual is worthy of honor and praise. It serves as a community-wide endorsement of the person as a role model to our children to strive to embody their educational achievement. Board Trustee White, you represent my district I reside in. I am asking you today to answer the calls of our community and request a process be put in place to rename these schools so the community can be given a due process when making a request to rename a school. Trustee Wolf, I am asking you to second that request because the school that is in question resides in your district. I ask all the board members to request a process to create and not to ignore the members of our community. Thank you.
Becky Brenner.
I'm Becky Brenner, 14814 Heimer Road. I live in Northeast School District. I'm a graduate of MacArthur, and I'm a retired art teacher from Wagner High School. And without showing too much disrespect, and Ms. Perkins, thank you for answering my letter, but without showing too much disrespect, I would suggest that you do not deserve an award. I can't believe that you got one, because for two reasons, mainly. Number one, I understand that you put out the word, as school districts tend to do, that teachers could not speak their mind on this issue, and neither could students. That is unbelievable to me. I did have the pleasure of living in Seattle, Washington, and teaching there for 10 years in Seattle Public Schools, where such a debate would have been welcomed to give the students a chance to learn how to be good citizens and to voice their thoughts and have a discussion in a peaceful but meaningful way. When you cut off debate like that, that's a crime. And as a board of trustees, shame on you for doing that. And also forbidding your teachers to discuss it, in public. Shame on you again for that, because they are the leaders in many ways at the school. And if you shut their mouths, then you're missing a huge opportunity. Secondly, I know that you've heard incredible speeches this evening, as you have for the last 3 months now. And I'm going to ask you, because I know we all watch the news and you've all heard the expression Black Lives Matter. I would suggest to you that it is not just about police brutality. It is also an issue in this room. Because if you hear what people have said tonight, then you have to acknowledge either that Black lives don't matter to you or they do. Because right now you have chosen by your inaction to only hear those alumni, those white alumni, and their requests. You have closed yourself off from everything that you have been hearing. And shame on you for that as well. What a terrible example to set for the new generation. So I'm asking you to reconsider, vote on this, correct the racist decision that was made in the 50s, which is not that hard to do. You just have to have the courage to do it. And I think you will find that the San Antonio community will applaud your leadership in taking such a stand. You will not be, outcasts as you think. It is a huge issue right now, and as well it should be, that it's finally come up in a big way in our country to try to right some of those wrongs from the past. Thank you very much.
William Schlecht, I think. I'm not sure. I can't read the writing.
Good evening. William Schleck, 1022 Navarro.
Thank you.
You have a great opportunity. Present it as that and act quickly. It's really simple, and it's an opportunity to actually improve the reputation of this state. It's not a good reputation. Texas State Board of Education has a lousy reputation, not just denial of global warming. It's on this issue. Not long ago, they were rewriting the textbook on why the Civil War began. Just a few years ago, they downplayed the significance of slavery. We're downplaying the significance of the symbols that gave rise to the naming of Lee and the symbols that surrounded the flags that are now taken down several years ago, except for that flag that's still the gift of the 1970 class. It's in concrete. The timing of it, the naming of Lee, 1958, that's when the flags came out. That's when the namings came out. 1954, Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. That was the response, the resistance to the old past of segregation. The flags, it was a symbol. Lee was a symbol. Lee was a very, very talented man of war. Very talented. He belongs in the history books. He belongs in a museum. He doesn't belong on high schools. He does not belong. And the Texas State Board of Education needs to be reminded of what the Vice President of the Confederacy said about the founding of his government, our new government. Its foundations, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. It gets worse or it gets more specific, as far as how Texas described its reason for seceding from the North. The Texas legislation talks about the North proclaiming the debasing doctrine of equality of all men, irrespective of race or color, a doctrine at war with nature, in opposition to the experience of mankind, and in violation of the plainest revelations of divine law. They demand the abolition of Negro slavery throughout the Confederacy, the recognition of political equality between the white and Negro races, and avow their determination to press on their crusade against us. It's an easy, easy decision, and the quicker you decide, the more impact you will have. The slower your decision is, the worse this issue will fall on you, the worse it will reflect on your judgment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patsy Esterline.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Gottardi, executive staff, and guests. My name is Patsy Esterline. I'm the president of the Northeast American Federation of Teachers, and our address is 6800 Park 10 Boulevard, Suite 123 North, San Antonio, Texas, 78213. As you know, the Texas Supreme Court has the school finance lawsuit under consideration. One of their options is to call the Texas legislature into special session sometime in 2016 instead of waiting until January 2017. There are other options, such as remanding it back to a lower court, as Governor Abbott wants, but hopefully that won't occur. Northeast AFT, along with our state organization, Texas AFT, have a particular issue that we want the legislature to address should they meet in special session. That issue is the amount of state money allocated per employee for health insurance. In 2002, the state began sending a $75 per month per employee to school districts for health insurance. That amount of $75 has not changed since 2002. The burden on employees in school districts has increased each year since then as health costs have risen. Northeast AFT is currently educating our members and non-members on the importance of increasing that amount. We are seeking to have the $75 amount increased to $150 per month per employee. Both the district and the employee would benefit greatly by that increase. I just provided you with flyers that we are currently circulating. We ask that you as a board and individuals support our push. We ask that you adopt the increase as a part of your legislative program. Thank you for your consideration of our proposal.
Charles Doyle.
Superintendent Gottardi, Northeast School Board members. My name is Charles Doyle. I live at 2639 Woodbury Drive. I am a Northeast Independent School District taxpayer and parent. I graduated from MacArthur. I was a history major at the University of Texas. During the 1960s, I was in the Army in Korea. I was the athletic trainer for Lee High School for almost 30 years. I dedicate my remarks to the general who died on this day in 1870, and to Mr. Reed Sellers, who wrote the school song. I do not support any name changes for Lee or any of the Northeast schools. Due consideration was taken in the original process, which focused on famous people who are military or political figures with direct ties to San Antonio or South Texas. So you can get schools named for Speaker and Vice President John Nance Garner from Uvalde and Admiral Chester Nimitz from Fredericksburg. To the people demanding name changes, I am greatly offended that you are offended and choose to label a great man as a traitor and imply that Robert E. Lee High School is racist.
You're out of order.
This is not true.
Sirs, please stop. Stop. Stop.
Her Dr. Goebbels' procedure of telling the big lie and repeating it often and loudly so that people will eventually believe that it has to be true appears to be attempted. A famous bully of the 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy, labeled everyone he did not like a communist, and you seem to be calling everyone racist if they do not happen to agree with you. To all who would talk about the Charleston shooting and do all the name listing, this is a sick individual that everyone condemns. We should not be giving him so much attention because this is what he wanted. When you do so, you encourage copycat results like Roanoke. There should be an listing of the white victims or repeating the name of the black shooter. It was not a workplace violence, but obviously also a hate crime designed to get maximum publicity. No one is demanding that all rainbow flags be banned or burned, or that all statues of black men be removed. That would be absurd.
Mr. Doyle, bring it down a notch, please, if
Okay.
you wouldn't mind.
I'm sorry, but
I understand, but I am asking you
Yes, ma'am.
respectfully to bring it down a notch.
Yes, ma'am. There's also recently this junior college shooting in Oregon, copycatted. There will always be current events that the media will exploit to spin their divide and conquer focus, to not let any good crisis go to waste, and to get their favorite agendas promoted, such as gun control and climate change. The famous lion recently killed in Africa will be remembered for a time, and now there are loud objections to big game trophy hunting. That should not be a reason to rename Roosevelt, who was a conservative champion famous for his hunting expeditions. My ancestor was an Irish officer from North Carolina who served with General Washington at Valley Forge. The U.S. has fought 2 wars with England, and the British exploited Ireland for centuries. Great resentment and bad memories result and remain. I could choose to be greatly offended by the British flag and music at Winston Churchill and demand that school be renamed. Also, he was not connected to Texas and was famous for heavy drinking and smoking. It was ships under this British flag that brought most of the slaves to the New World.
Mr. Doyle, your time is up.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, the next one, the last name is McMillan.
Is there a McMillan? Is your first name Christy?
No, it's Max.
Max. Okay, I'm going to remind everyone one more time. Civility is paramount with these proceedings. This is a privilege. This is a privilege to have people come and speak to the board, and we hold that very dear to what we do. And we welcome every one of you to be here. But I have to implore you that we do not behave this way as a board, and so therefore I'm going to ask every one of you out there to please respect us. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, staff, and guests. I thank you for this time afforded to us and the privilege of addressing you, and I hope that you would hear the sentiment of my heart and the conviction of my soul. My name is Max Christie McMillan. I reside at 523 Red Quill Nest. I stand before you as a citizen of this city, and I stand in support of a student in this district. My stance is derived from a general concern for what I feel is a subversion of this student's, Kayla Wilson's, right to speak her mind and the protections that should be afforded to her by this board. For all intents and purposes, when she follows the prescribed protocol and is ignored by those in authority, that is a subversion of her right to freely express herself. And I, for one, find that concerning. When I moved here 7 years ago, my realtor showed me many things about this city, one of which, as a mother, she showed me the benefits of the NEISD. And I didn't really want to move to where she was not necessarily recommending, but she made some suggestions as a mother. And when I made those comparisons in school district as a mother, although the other house was nicer, NEISD was the better choice for my son. Now, I am moving in the next few months, and I will be in your district again, and I am really concerned that I will have a student in high school that may have convictions that don't match yours. And I'm fine with that, and I'm sure you are, as citizens of this country, are fine with that as well. What concerns me is that when he expresses those convictions, he runs the risk of being left out in the cold. That's where I have an issue. I think we can all agree that whatever our convictions are as it pertains to this topic, we can all agree that members of our citizenry are entitled to protection. Whether you agree or not, I think Kayla Wilson is a product of this board. I think this board created an environment where learning is supported. I think this board created an environment where the truth is promulgated, where rigorous debate stands in support of the sharing of ideas, the dissection of convictions, and the inspection of the derivation of those ideas. That's what happened here. You told this young woman to learn, to read, to think, to inspect, and she did that. And then she acted on it. And all we're asking is give her the protection to do so without having to fear for her own personal safety and for her reputation. She has been maligned in social media, ostracized by her cohorts, and even by some of your educational colleagues. You can't retract that hurt, and I don't think anyone's asking you to. But what you can do is express and continue to iterate your support, not necessarily for this young woman, but for our system of government by lifting the gag order placed on faculty and students. You can express your support for equal protection by offering some redress to those who have enacted terroristic threats and abusive language to a citizen of our country, of our state, and our city. You can take a stand, even if it's nominal, by saying, whatever your conviction is on this issue, that we are not for selective protection. I do not stand before you to argue the merits of this case. I think you've heard that in spades tonight. I think you've heard spirited arguments and fact-ridden statements. That's not my purpose. But what I do ask is that you consider what you can do as a board and as a body to support this young woman's engagement with this system, as you have prescribed, and to protect this young woman as prescribed in our federal and state constitutions, as well as what you can do to stand and say, more than our personal convictions, we are supporters of every single solitary student in our district, regardless whether we agree with them or not. I am asking that you protect her. Not her opinions, for they may not be your own, but protect her right to have such an opinion, and do so with the full weight of this board and its significant power, not by virtue of your agreement, but by virtue of your role, your respect for our government, your responsibility to this city, this state, and its
Ms. McMillan,
students.
your time is up. Thank you very much.
Kimberly McCutcheon.
Ms. McCutcheon? Yeah. Okay, next, please. Looks like
Maybe Keith, Scott, Carrie? Kelly?
maybe Carrie
Kelly?
Scott.
Scott.
Yeah.
No?
Okay, let's
All
keep
right.
going.
Fernando Rocha?
Fernando Rocha, 11207 Lago Vista, 78023. Madam President, trustees, and Dr. Gotardi, thank you again for giving us this forum. And first thing, I mean, I've been here, this is my third meeting along with a lot of people here, and I will agree with Mr. Herring and Ms. McMillan that this issue, as y'all know, as I've said before, has taken a life of its own. And I agree with them in the fact that this issue that we're not going to agree on, you know, I'm a graduate of Lee High School, so changing the name for me is not something that I support. However, the debate is something I support. And it's a debate that needs to happen, and it's a debate that we should be encouraging. And again, the debate, in my eyes, is not about Robert E. Lee High School. The debate we need to be having is, let me step back. It's not about the school name. It's about having a process. I think a lot of this issue is that we don't have a process to change the name. The process currently is, we understand it's up to the trustees. Well, that's really not a process, in my opinion. A process would be if we're going to change the name, these are the steps that need to happen. These are the ways that things need to roll. So so everybody understands what's happening, everybody understands the ground rules, and we can have a debate on the process and work our way through the process. And if at the end, we let the residents and the taxpayers of the district decide. I mean, it takes it off of your plate and puts it in the hands of the people who are here as taxpayers and as residents of the district. That's that. Now, I will disagree with Mr. Herring on one thing, and I think and again, I respect him. We had a good conversation before the meeting. The no justice.
Mr. Rocha, no names. Eliminate the names.
No
Keep
problem.
going.
Okay. The no justice, no bond. I think that I understand the point of that phrase. However, the very students that could benefit the most from this bond are going to be those students that we're trying to protect. So I would ask them to reconsider the no justice, no bond, and kind of step behind this argument and look at what the bond will do for all the students of the district, including the 71% that he referred to. Thank you.
Irene Kistler.
Irene Kistler, 3918 Privet Place, 78259. Good evening, Madam President and all of the board members. Thank you again for volunteering your time on behalf of our community, and congratulations to all of you for being recognized as one of the top school boards in the state. I wholeheartedly agree that you are the real winners. Dr. Gotardi and executive staff, it is really great to see you once again, and thank you for working so hard for our kids. As you know, effective school library programs will be part of the reauthorization of the Federal Elementary and Secondary Education Act, often referred to as No Child Left Behind. As I stated last month, school districts will begin to evaluate and reflect upon their school library programs. It's important to me as a community member that this evaluation is accurate and that parents in particular understand the indicators of an effective school library program. One thing about me, and anyone who has taught with me can attest to this, I am a data junkie. I truly believe that math is the great equalizer. It pulls emotion out of the equation, forces all the critical parameters onto a level playing field so that they can be compared. These comparisons then launch discussion. Staffing of libraries has been an emotional issue for NAISD, but we need to take the emotion out of it and look at it by the numbers, and then make the decision that is best for students and their achievement according to educational research. So what do our numbers say? I'd like to share them in as common a lens as possible, in a manner that matches the organizational structure designed by NAISD, and that is by high school cluster. First, let me share my process. I reviewed the district's library staffing data and created a fraction. The numerator for each fraction represented the number of campuses in a cluster without a full-time library clerk. The denominator represented the number of schools in that cluster. I then converted this fraction to a percentage designed to capture a snapshot of where the deficits are in library staffing across NAISD. Specifically, what percentage of schools per cluster fall into the below standard program development category for Standard 2, Principal 2, according to current Texas library standards. This standard requires a full-time certified school librarian and a trained library paraprofessional for a campus to be considered acceptable program development by the state. Trained paraprofessional support allows the school librarian to do their job effectively and according to the standards established by NAISD's librarian appraisal instrument. So by the clusters, here's the snapshot. Lee and Madison fare the best, although they still have deficits of 22%. This means that 22% of their campuses are below standard program development for Standard 2, Principal 2 library staffing. This is followed by the Churchill and Johnson clusters. They're currently experiencing deficits of 28%, so over a quarter of their campuses failed to meet the state standards for library staffing. This is followed by MacArthur and Reagan at 41 and 42%, respectively. But none of these deficits compare to the Roosevelt cluster, which I feel is in a state of crisis regarding library services. The Roosevelt cluster is staffed at an alarming deficit of 48%. This means that almost half of their campuses fall into the below standard program development range for Standard 2, Principal 2. But that's not the whole picture. Currently, every cluster is staffed at 100% for certified school librarians, except the Roosevelt cluster. The Roosevelt cluster has 2 schools. I'm gonna try not to cry. Ed White and Kruger, and they're currently operating with no library staff at all. There are subs to circulate the books, but there's no certified school librarian at either campus. This means that NEISD has 2,000 students receiving no direct library services. It bears repeating from last month what research tells us. Students score 22% higher on English tests and 17% higher on reading tests when school libraries are staffed appropriately. Better funded school library programs close the achievement gap for minority and poor students across every measure. 22 and 17% higher, these are not small percentages. Without certified school
Kistler,
librarians.
Take a second, take a breath, and then you can continue. Take a little bit of time.
Sorry. Without certified school librarians, Ed White and Kruger Middle School students are operating on an unlevel playing field. There needs to be a conversation among the board and the executive staff as to why NEISD is having difficulty attracting replacements for those librarians. Is the lack of support for the school librarian position at these schools causing otherwise qualified candidates to pass on the opportunity to work for NEISD? Will this continue to occur for campuses with inadequate staffing when they do have openings? This question needs discussion and reflection. So where does all this leave us?
Thank you, Ms. Kistler. I'm sorry your time is
Nope,
up.
that's okay. Thank you.
Timothy
You're welcome.
M. Adams.
Mr. Adams, your name, your address, 5 minutes.
My name is Tim Adams. I live at 427 Wonder Parkway, San Antonio, Texas, 78213. This is my third time to speak at a board meeting, third consecutive board meeting. Same topic, why we should not change the name of Robert E. Lee High School. I want to reiterate some things that I said at the August meeting, and that is that I've got extensive experience over the past 6 years working on the Lee campus in several aspects. I've done substitute teaching there probably between 35 and 40 times in that span. I sponsored the Fellowship of Christian Athletes group at Robert E. Lee High School, started it and sponsored it for 4 years, from 2010 to 2014. I was also the booster club president, the athletic booster club president at Robert E. Lee High School from 2011 to 2013. I'm a graduate of Lee High School. My 3 oldest kids have all graduated from ISA on the Lee campus. Oldest son was 3-year varsity letterman in football, received the Bruce Osborne Award, and if you're part of the Lee family, you know what the Bruce Osborne Award is all about. My younger son, 4 years in the marching band at Lee, and my youngest daughter, who's a sophomore at ISA this year, plays tennis. My wife and I have also been extensively involved in the band boosters as well, and ISA Amigos. So I think I know a little bit about this school. I'm not an outsider. I'm not an agitator. I'm not spinning theories and ideas and opinions. I'm telling you exactly what's going on. And I can tell you right now, in the time that I've spent on the campus in the last 6 years, I've observed some remarkable things. And one of the things that I've always loved about Lee is the diversity that exists on that campus and the unity. A few weeks ago, I was talking to a young African-American young man who works at a local pizza establishment. And he mentioned that he was a graduate of Lee High School, a 2013 graduate, rather. And I asked him, I said, well, what was your experience like? And he said, I had a great experience there. And the issue of the name change came up in our conversation. And he told me, he said, you know, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. He said, people talk about a school being a safe place. He said, let me tell you something. He said, before I went to Lee, I was a student at Brackenridge. And he said, at Brackenridge every day, I saw girls get into fistfights in the cafeterias at lunch. He said there were gangs that were prevalent throughout the school, and you just always had to be looking over your shoulder because you didn't know what was going to happen to you. He said, when I came to Robert E. Lee High School, it was a breath of fresh air because it was a safe place. and it was a good place, and it was a place where people got along, regardless of whether they were white, brown, black, or any other ethnic or racial origin. That's the kind of school that Robert E. Lee High School is. The fact that we've got basically 4 schools on one campus and to have the kind of chemistry and camaraderie that we have is truly amazing and a miracle. But this issue has tried to divide the school. But I can tell you that attempt at division has been unsuccessful. And one of the ways you know that is because you haven't seen any other students, current students, coming here to support the idea of the name change. You've got one. You've got one who's got a bunch of other people backing her. Fine, this is America, free speech.
Mr.
I get
Adams.
it, and I appreciate it.
Down.
I'm sorry. I'm an old Baptist preacher. But,
And I'm an old cranky lady.
okay.
So bring it down.
Got it. Yes, ma'am. Lee High School is a good place. It's a safe place. The name should stay as it is. And, if you want to see, where people stand in terms of the actual community support, I can guarantee you the community is about 9-1 in favor of keeping the name. And I'm talking about people that support the school, like myself, are involved in the school, like myself, and who think things are just fine the way they are. So please, let us go back to how we were
Thank
in
you, sir.
unity
Your
and
time is
harmony.
up.
Thank you.
Next item.
13, board member request for items to be placed on next month's agenda.
Do I have a board member who wishes to have an item placed on next month's agenda? Next item.
14, discussion and possible action regarding board member requests for reports from the administration.
No action. Next item.
15, adjournment.
Excuse me.
Oh, yes,
May I
sir.
make a request for a report, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Wheat?
My request is that the administration would find out the process that other districts, specifically Houston ISD and some other ISDs in the state, have used to go through and evaluate whether they want to make a name change. I think that it would be important for us to at least have that information. I've certainly looked it up on the web, but I don't really trust the web. So I'd like to get a report on that, along with any documentation that would also be in line with the University of Texas and their process that they used on this issue, because I think that could be important information for the board to consider.
So, Mr. Wheat, your motion is to request,
Wait, all right.
go ahead.
Sorry.
All right, that's,
I mean, a
Report.
report.
okay, he hasn't
Sorry,
made a
I'm-
motion yet.
Okay.
Sorry. Let
No,
me
no,
make
no.
a motion for a report on the process other ISDs, school districts in the state have used when addressing the same issue as Robert E. Lee that we have,
Okay. So
including also the University of Texas. And
this
that's
is
my
your
motion.
request?
Yes.
Okay. So that's Roman numeral 13. Is that correct, Mrs. Hughes?
Yes, so
Okay.
we're going back to 13.
And
is what
I
we're
didn't,
doing.
it's not to be placed on the agenda, it's a request for a report. And I'm sorry if I got ahead.
That's okay.
So it would be 14.
Right. Okay, so let me make sure that I understand, sir. Mr. Wheat is making a request that your item, your request for the
Under
report
number
from
14.
administration. The request, and then 14 is the actual possible action. So now we go to possible action. Yes.
For a report.
It's the same thing, but it's just number 14.
Okay.
Still has to be voted on.
And I'm sorry if I got ahead, one number.
That's no problem. Okay, so, thank you, Mrs. Grona. So you're asking for the report, then we would need a second. Let's make sure that I've got the parliamentary procedure correct. We've got a second to approve that report, or do we just request the report?
We have to have this. We have to have this.
Okay. Okay. So you've requested the report. Do I have a second? Any second?
Second.
Mrs. Wolf, thank you.
And Mr. Wheat.
Mr.
And Mr. White.
Mr. White, okay. All those in favor of the motion made by Mr. Wheat and the second by Mr. White, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item.
Adjournment.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for the delay there. 9:25 is the time.